whole hotel.
Called the Plan Commission study session for St. John for July 19th. Roll call, please.
Bob Rolson,
Here.
Yolanda Cardona,
Here.
John Gill,
Here.
Joe Gomestego,
Here.
Bob Alois,
Here.
Jenna Lordson,
Here.
John Kennedy,
Here.
Attorney Adam Decker,
Here.
Engineer John Dykstra,
Here.
Councilman Liaison Brian Blazak,
Present.
Town Manager Joe Wizawati is not here today.
And if anyone, just make sure their microphones are on. Thank you. First on the agenda, we have item A, Gates of St. John, Unit 12B, proposed final plat for Gates of St. John, Unit 21B, 25 single-family residential lots, part of the original 108 acres, 108 acres on the east side of Klein Avenue, 101st and 109th Avenue. Mr. Kill?
Yes, Mr. Kennedy, the first item, we split it up to 21B and then 24 and 25, the way that the primary came in. So we are now in a position where we like to consider a final plat. We're in the process of installing all of the roads right now, all the stones down, curbs coming next, and then obviously after that, asphalt. So we will have that wrapped up by the Plan Commission meeting. Whatever we don't have done, we will secure with a check to payable to the town like we usually do. Usually don't use post letters of credit, we just give cash.
Okay. And just so you know, I always rely on engineer's letter for approval. So make sure we get that, or he has enough time to review what he needs to review.
Yeah, John asked that I split up the engineer's estimate of cost into the 2 units. We gave one for all of them, so I will be taking care of that for him,
Okay.
most likely tomorrow.
So the final does not look the same as the preliminary. Is that correct?
The final, that is correct in the fact that we did leave some lots out because we are still not quite sure exactly the course of the raw water main. We could plat them, but we would just assume wait until we know exactly the route so we can make sure the easements are all there. If some of the easements need to be bigger, some don't. Just not quite sure just yet. So as soon as that's known, then I will probably come in and go ahead and plat those last lots.
Adam, question, usually primary match, or final matches primary. Should this be a amendment to primary?
Yeah, typically, the preliminary plat is what's been considered by the Plan Commission and approved, and so if there are deviations, those, I think, are appropriately considered by the Plan Commission. The final plat is what is recorded, so the Plan Commission can approve amendments or deviations from the preliminary plat, and I don't know that it requires a separate instance of amending the preliminary plat if that's being considered at the same time as approval of the final plat. But I do think the Plan Commission certainly has discretion to consider whatever, again, changes or deviations exist from the primary plat as approved by the Plan Commission.
So Steve, tell me again, to help me figure this out, why are we not including those 2 lots, 2345 and 2346?
Well, we're going to remove, we're actually around the corner right here. The water main is going to come through here somehow and get up to 105th. So until we know exactly what this route's going to be, we just don't want to plat that. We'll plat this as a phase. I mean, you can plat as many phases as you want of a primary, but we're just proposing to, because the route is unknown, we're just proposing to leave this out right now. And that's quite a few lots for us.
And when will the route be determined?
That will be a discussion between, the town manager and I would believe Robinson Engineering and IDEM approval.
I'm guessing, John, if I had to guess, a couple months.
Yes.
Because you got the water tower on this site. So
No,
it's-
not a water tower, it's a well.
Well,
Sorry, well,
yeah, that's well number 9, right. We know where the well site's going. The well site is determined. The route of the raw water main into the system to an eventual treatment plant is not determined yet.
So can I ask why the well site is an exception on the final plat?
Because it's
And we're not
deeded
gonna be
already.
platting it?
It's deeded. We can't plat, we would have to have the town sign it. We kind of went through this previously, and it was kind of decided, just, let's plat our stuff, and then if you all wanted to plat the well site, you could plat it,
We have to.
instead of a joint final plat, if you will. Because there would be separate owners.
So the exception would not be a lot of record without and it would not have an address. So the town would have to then identify it as a lot of records so they can issue a building permit to have it recognized. In order for us to issue a building permit, it has to be recognized as a lot of record with an address site.
Well, I guess that would kind of be up to you, Sergio. If you wanted to do that, that would be fine. That's certainly nothing wrong with that. Or it's a piece of property that is simply deeded and owned by the town. I mean, if you want to make it a lot of record and you want to go through that process, absolutely. I mean, you're more than welcome to. But we had this come up when we were doing the lots by the water tower. Remember that? Where it was decided we didn't want a joint plat where the town and the developer would sign off. So we just kept with that same thought process, that's all.
So it was a remnant parcel it was a remnant of the parent parcel. So we're gonna repeat the same thing again. Okay.
I just want to make sure we're clear. We're on now units 24 and 25, which is
Yes.
item B.
And because we went around the corner, because the lots that are not gonna be in 21A are up here, is that correct?
21B. Yeah.
21B, actually, yes.
Yeah, they're up on
They-
Azalea.
I think those two lots are mismarked on the first page.
Yeah.
It's the two lots south of what's indicated, so they're straight across from Azalea Drive from lot 2144.
This right here,
Oh, okay.
if I understood it right.
Yeah, it should be lot 2142 and 2143 were in the original primary plat.
Put you down here, is that them?
Yeah, those two.
Those two?
Yeah,
here.
right there,
Okay,
yeah.
so then, that would be here, okay. Because the water line is coming this way or coming down Klein and then across this way?
Well, it eventually has to make its way to somewhere at 105th and Klein. It's just that, and maybe Bob can help, there's been some discussion about tying it into the existing treatment plant, changing the media, then there's been some discussion, maybe a different treatment plant. So until that's ultimately decided,
Right. He's correct on that. There's been discussion of, are we going with a new water treatment facility, which we want to, but we're also going to tie it into the existing Gates treatment plant. So you don't want all your eggs in one basket, so you don't want all your wells in one well house, or treatment plant. So we're gonna make it, hopefully, this is what we're planning, is we can go to a new treatment plant and an existing treatment plant. So if one goes down, we can still use those wells.
and the route we're going to take to the north, once that route is determined, we will drop that route on a plat with proper easements to accommodate that, and then come in and plat it.
Well, you kind of know where that route is already, so.
Yeah, but is it gonna go
Right.
in the rear? I mean, we just wanna make sure we get all the easements right, Bob, that's all.
I
That's
understand.
so we don't have to amend anything, and it just gets messy. So we figured, let's just leave all those lots out until the water main route is given to us. Then we can drop that route on our plat, and we'll put the easements to accommodate exactly where it's gonna go.
Which makes sense, because if those lots get platted, get built on. Residents move in, fences get put up, they could be in the way. so-
We have that problem already to the north a little bit of this, and we don't want any more homes in the way.
No,
It just gets very complicated when residents start moving into these homes. Then you gotta tear up the backyards, tear down fences. It's a mess. So it's easier just to leave them out, get things done, and then when the people move in, everything is set. We're not disrupting anybody, in other words.
I understand what you're saying.
So Bob or Steve, is the connection then gonna, where's the connection then coming in? Is it off Klein or is it coming off down Azalea, down 106?
It will come down Klein
Okay,
and over towards, go ahead, scroll down. A little more, right there, shoot right. I'm assuming this is going to be the route and through the rear easements.
okay.
Correct, Steve?
Well, we're hoping.
Yes.
We're hoping that's the route.
Right,
So then
Now,
this, there would
could it be different?
it could be.
It's been talked about a couple different places. We just simply want to be sure about it, that's all.
So this is not started yet, the infrastructure then, under preliminary plat?
The only thing done there is the well is drilled.
The
What's-
wells drilled?
What size main?
It's gonna be a 12 inch, or no, 16.
No,
16.
18 inch.
That's an
18
18-inch main, that's a huge.
Do you
yes.
want an 18-inch in the rear yard?
We really don't have an option.
Don't have an option, okay.
You know, Bob,
You can't put it on West 107th place?
well, with the size of an 18-inch, we're going to obviously need some, maybe
You
some
don't have
bigger
the
easements.
separation from sanitary and all that stuff,
Right.
so.
So
And the appropriate easements are in place for.
it looks like you have a 20-foot easement in the, is that correct there? It looks like in the back here.
Right,
10
we
and
got, we're going to need at least that, or, you see, there may have to be a slight jog in the road to jump over to those easements, so if we need to shift things a little bit, we're gonna have to shift them to accommodate this 18-inch main. I mean, you have to accommodate the raw water main no matter what we do. And we are well aware of this.
So is the goal then to come in and do this phase prior to the infrastructure, get preliminary plat approval,
Well,
or?
this right here, Sergio, all of this everything will be in, okay?
Okay,
We're not gonna plat this until we know this exact route, because this may have to, the main's gonna have to probably shift up a little bit to catch some of these side yards. We may end up shifting things a little, and then we know we're gonna have an 18-inch main, so we're gonna need at least 20 foot of easement combined, just to make sure it works out. So until we know the exact route, we're not going to really come in and plat any of these lots yet, because number one, we don't want anybody building on them, because we don't want to be cutting through everybody's side yards and rear yards and tearing things down, or I should say, the town maybe, the town.
Yeah.
It just complicates the job by a factor of 10.
So there's an easement to the rear of these yards in 24B.
Correct.
It looks like there's a 10-foot easement on the front, because I guess the concern is if we don't know the exact route, if it's whether gonna be on West 170th Place, which it sounds like it's not because of a sanitary issue, I just gotta make sure, if we move forward with this final, that at least the route is determined in 24B, that we know the exact route.
The
So we
route-
have the proper easements in place, so that it's not being switched to a different location because the route changes.
The route,
in an
the route's
effect.
determined through 24B.
Route is determined, it's in the rear
Yes,
yards.
now, when we go up and we tie into 105th, when we start going towards Klein Avenue, when we get out of 24B, that's where we need to make sure we know where the route's gonna be. And on top of that, John, like I said, we don't want houses built there. You don't wanna start tearing up people's yards.
I get it.
So that's why we're leaving that out, because it just makes things too complicated.
And what we're trying to do is make things less complicated by trying to have our final and our primary and final the same, right? It matches easier when you, and I understand what your
It
issue
does
is here,
match, but
this project has been ongoing for multiple years, and so we're just trying to make sure, as, you know, historic research, we have everything matched or easy to locate and preserve, so.
well, and that's why we asked for, obviously, extensions, so we could get these things platted accordingly, but, you know, this is just, we just need to work with the town on this.
Well, you're working with the town, then
We
we're
we just
working
need to
with,
work with the town on this.
and we're working with IDEM to get permitting. It
Right.
takes time.
It just
really
takes time. I mean, so basically, we're just gonna have, we've got this split into something that will be logical then, okay? So most of, we got 90% of it will have platted. When we know the final route, we get the main put in, get everything set, then we'll go ahead and plat all of it, the rest of it. And it'll be as few units as possible. That's the key. So we're not platting all these separate units.
So you
And
can't,
that's when it becomes confusing.
and you can't plat 2345 and 2346 because the route of the water main, you don't know if it's coming off a Klein
Well,
Or if
it's
it's-
coming from
of,
105th down Klein Avenue to a point. It's going to then turn east. Then it's probably going to have a jog somewhere and pick up in the backyards of those homes that we're platting now. So the only reason we're platting all this now is because we're under contract and we have to fulfill it. Or we probably would try to leave some of this out too, so.
so you know the location of the water main for 2345 and 2346 already? You know where the easement needs to be on those lots?
Well, presumably in the rear yards, but we don't want any more homes built.
Which lots are you?
We're gonna have to tear up backyards as it is.
Right, it's these two.
Yeah, it's
But John, we,
It's
Yeah.
2142 and
It's these two lots.
2143. Flip to the second page.
yeah, John, that's what I was saying. We
Gotcha.
just simply don't wanna tear up any more yard, because look at the homes that have already been built. They're like, that's already gonna be a challenge as it is.
Yeah.
So you see, do you see the two lots to the west side of Azalea there? That's we're gonna leave those off for now.
Right. 'Cause
And then we're gonna leave the remainder of the lots in 24 and 25 off until the main gets installed. Then we'll come back and we'll plat all the lots.
It's logical.
So now maybe I understand a little bit better. So 45 and 46 were on the preliminary, but they weren't supposed to be on the preliminary. 42 and 43 were supposed to be on the preliminary, but now they're not on the final. Am I understand that correctly?
Right.
So we approved 45 and 46 on the preliminary.
That's grayed out. That's part of a different unit.
So this is what was approved here on the screen.
That second, yeah.
Okay,
2142 and 2143 were part of the preliminary plat, but they are not part of
final,
the
okay.
final plat.
And then this is the final proposed, which
Gotcha.
excludes these two lots.
So what we're gonna end up having is we're gonna end up having a couple phases to, 2 phases 21B, 2 phases 24 and 25, because we're gonna have 2 lots to plat in 21B, then the remainder in 24 and 25. So we can minimize how many phases we have. And the fact that we're building no homes there.
Steve, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that okay, John?
absolutely.
So 21B as presented right now with those 2 lots removed, are you going to add that that will be phase 1 of 21B? Is that how you're going
Or however Jenna,
to want?
if she wants it
Oh,
phase 1 or however, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
I
that's
would like
fine,
it
yeah.
all done now, so there is no other phase. That's what I would like.
You know, we could do 21B2 if you wanted to, but however it segregates
Okay,
that out, yes.
okay,
But it
okay.
will, to answer your question, yes, it will be shown separately on a
Okay.
separate
So
plat.
when you do those 2 future lots, when that's ready,
It'll be a 21B something.
it'll still be 21B
Yes.
something? Okay, good, okay.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
that way you can keep track of it.
But it would just be those 2 lots. Those
Well,
would
that's
be
just the 2, yeah, just the 2 in 21B.
21.
Then the rest of them will be in the other
24.
units, 24 and
yeah,
25, right.
yeah.
Any other questions? Comments?
Phase 25, or Unit 25, the preliminary that we have for Unit 24 only shows the southern portion of Unit 25 approved. Like, it almost looks like that northern portion was never given preliminary plat.
Right, everything on the east side was primary platted, it has been, Jenna, yes.
So was that part of a different petition?
Not that I recall, that was done, I think it was done several years ago, right?
So the north,
I don't know, I'm asking you,
Oh.
because how this
sure
has
that was
been
done several
broken
years
out
ago.
is not, it's not easy to follow.
so this is what was preliminary plat granted, shows the east, the southern half of Unit 25, which it doesn't, it just says Unit 25, so this would be Unit 25, this is 24. But then this was submitted for secondary plat, which includes the northern half of what looks to be 25.
Yeah, that's all,
No, but we never saw that on the preliminary.
that had to be on a,
Do you know when this was granted, or the northern half?
Sergio,
of
off the top of my head, I simply can't remember when that was done. I'd have to check for you.
I mean, we've looked as well. We're trying
Yeah.
to pinpoint a year at least, and we can't find something.
So it's the north half of
Yeah.
Unit 25? Well,
Yeah.
let me, as I'm standing here right now, I simply can't tell you. I don't remember.
I mean, we'll keep looking. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, I'll keep looking, but 2 on Unit 25, between page 2 and 3, there's duplicate lots. So I don't know if that should maybe be cleaned up a bit.
yeah, like 2573, 2562 are duplicate lots.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's duplicate lot numbers, Jenna, we definitely, that has to be,
Yeah, because the preliminary plat shows Unit 24 and part of Unit 25 on the primary, but the secondary shows 24B and 25.
because the north half was previously platted, primary platted. Again, I'll have to, I'm sure we have the records in the office. I just don't have them in front of me right now.
Yeah, if you got something, that'll help us at least kind of start looking as well. Give us a year at least to start looking, what year to start looking for minutes and,
We just want to make sure, Steve, that we're just making sure we're getting the primary and or final matched up as best we can.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why we have a study session for stuff like this, so, yeah, I'll be happy to go look and pull the record, so.
All right, so 21B, so we got that discussed. We went to 24. Still trying to figure out where that water line's gonna be. Do we make a final determination on the exception, lot of record for the well?
it would be cleaner if we can identify this as, where's it at? As a lot of record, but if the town wants to then separate that out on their own, I mean, that would be, it's been dedicated to the city, but, or to the town, I'm sorry.
It's under 24.
Yeah.
Scroll up.
Yeah. Because I remember the water tower site, the concern was that it was supposed to be a fire station and a water tower, and then it was separated out to 3 lots for duplexes, the east half of the road, or the easement, I should say, access easement, which left the remnant parcel.
No, you're good.
That was
But-
like 1H, Sergio, or something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
And so we need to determine if then, if this is going to be then identified as part of the water, or is there a permanent, or nothing's been done here, right? Is there no work or anything, or?
No.
Okay. So you guys are gonna need an address for that, right? For maintenance or future identifications or anything?
We'll need an address eventually, yeah, when we
Okay.
start building a building.
So we can either assign the address as part of this, in which the town would have to be signatory towards, or the town would take this independently and create a lot of record and then assign it an address.
Well 8 was just deeded as well, right? Well 8, the same thing, was just deeded
Right,
to the town?
well, and since that's what the process that everybody wanted to follow when we did 1H, we just kind of assumed that you'd want to do that same process here.
I-
Just turn it into your own lot of record and sign an address and then have it platted.
Yeah, the reason why we did 1H the way we did was because it was already, for lack of better words, the horse was already out the barn. We couldn't train it, and could be an opportunity to get this corrected, or we can go the route where the town initiates and the planning staff would then guide the process for creating a one-lot subdivision for this parcel here, and assigning it an address.
So you're suggesting a lot of record be created by the developer?
It's very similar to the plat that was just signed recently for the Shops 96. The town was signatory to that plat as part of the vacate and dedication of right-of-ways. So it could occur this way. I mean, I guess we'd have to determine to see how the town wants to proceed, but either way would work.
It's usually easier if the town does everything on their own, because then they're not signing joint plats and it's just a lot easier. That's all. That's why we just did it this way. It could be done the other way. I mean,
Well, why don't you guys discuss and try to figure out a best option approach?
I'll get with the town manager's office and see the direction that,
it's kind of up to Joe, yeah, what he wants to
which
do.
direction he
It's-
wants to go, and then we'll advise Steve on how to move forward with that, so.
Okay, and then 25, you're gonna hopefully provide us with
I will
proximity date on when the preliminary plat was done for those.
I will endeavor to track down that north half and provide Jenna with whatever I can find, yes.
Perfect,
I'll keep looking as well.
okay. Anything else for the good of the cause? Going? All right. Items A and B are done.
Okay, thank you, everybody, have a good night.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have item C, Providence Bank subdivision. This is a two-lot proposed re-subdivision of Providence Bank subdivision at 101 Avenue and Calumet Avenue intersection. How are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you. Good evening, Doug Reddick with DVG, representing Shinaps, the owners of this property, which is presently a lot, I believe it's called Lot 2 in Providence Bank subdivision. Lot 1 at the north end is where Providence Bank resides, so they're building. So this is a large vacant parcel. We presented this several months ago with a different concept. We were going to do 5 lots with a terminating in a cul-de-sac at the west side due to the pipeline that runs through. That's that diagonal line. There's a pipeline in there. That's the property line. Then across the south end of this, we have the high tension tower line that was just obviously worked on recently with the new towers and more pipelines. So it's kind of an unusual piece. We've got pipelines to the west, pipelines to the south, high tension line to the south. Greystone is other subdivision there to the south. But we're here to talk about the concept of, we're changing the concept from 5 lots to 2. And the reason being is the large building where the cursor is, they have a potential user for that lot. And that's kind of changing the way they're thinking here. That deal is not finalized yet. We wanted to come tonight just to make sure the town's on board with going to 2 lots. The entrance for the large building lines up with the brand-new entrance to St. John Commons. That's why it's there. It kind of has to be there, mostly for traffic and the improvements that are being done to Calumet Avenue. It only makes sense. So then we would be seeking just one more entrance for the new building to the north, which is more of a conventional strip mall type building with multiple tenants in there, which is, and Synapse will be the owner of that. The larger building, they'll be selling that. Of course, we have to come back before the town with everything to do with that. And if you want to know the user of this large building, it's all I can tell, all I know is it's an assisted living type product. Large, I think it's a 2-story assisted living, independent living type of product with a company that's out of state.
So can you outline their total property? Not the lots, but the property owner's full parcel. Does he own beyond the pipeline?
To the
To
west?
the west, northwest?
No, the center of the pipeline is the property line. So the center of the pipeline easement is the property line, so that dark line.
That's his property line.
Yep, all the way down to Emerald Crossing right there, which is to the west, which you can't see. Then Greystone, the north line of Greystone is the south line of this property, of this platted lot. So they own all the way to Greystone, but that whole south end is pretty much unbuildable because of all the easements.
Doug, would they be able to have a cul-de-sac installed at the or at the end of Black Opal on their
So we
property?
did that across the street as part of St. John Commons.
Okay.
It's a very similar situation. The difference being St. John Commons was a PUD, and we had to get some exceptions to make that cul-de-sac smaller. They have a desire to do that. It's not part of this petition. We're going to plat that as an outlot. They hope to come back later and do that, but they don't want to do this as a PUD, and we can't do it with variances. And it's not priority to the project because it's only a couple lots.
I just know plowing that road and backing out of that is not real safe or fun.
And we
so-
understand that, and there's a desire to do that, but because of the pipeline exclusion zone, which kicks in there.
Right,
All you get is 2 cottage home lots, just like across the way.
right.
So it's doable.
And it's better because you can turn a plan.
And maybe at a minimum, we can give you a temporary gravel turnaround because they own the property. That could be a condition. I don't think you'd have a problem with that. Again, that's not the focus. The focus is
I understand.
these 2
I just wanted
buildings.
to
So it's on the
that
radar.
idea out there.
It's on the radar, and I think we could accommodate something to make it easier for everybody.
Okay.
Waivers? Are you going to be seeking any waivers?
Try not to. We have, it's a large building, but they're large lots. I mean, that assisted living, it's 9 acres. And he said they've done the building on like 5 or 6 acres before. So we got ample setbacks. The only thing is, because it's assisted living, sometimes parking issues come up because they don't really need a lot of parking for the size of the building. But that was the only one that the architect kind of threw at us, and he might need something for parking.
Secondary. You'll need a secondary access.
To the subdivision or to that site? But we can connect the 2 driveways. We didn't show it yet, but I can connect like a frontage road between the 2 lots. So we'll have 2 entrances on Calumet. If you want them interconnected, I was kind of expecting that question. We can do that, and we're willing to do that. It's probably a good idea.
I was going to ask that question.
We can. So that when you come in to the assisted living, you're going west straight into a driveway. We could take that straight north and tie it into the other parking lot, ingress, egress easements between them. We just weren't sure and that's why we're here. We weren't sure what the town would like to see there, but we could definitely do that.
I mean, the cross connection with St. John Commons is appropriate. So
Yep.
you got to have that.
You have to have that.
Yeah, you have to have that. Because, I mean, the only other way, you have a shared driveway, but then it's off-centered from across the street.
And we looked at that, it was just a little bit too ugly with the traffic, with the improvements on Calumet Avenue.
Doug,
I guess this thing I would ask, does St. John want 2 entrances for this lot? What is this, lot 2?
Yes, it is.
Off of Calumet Avenue? Or just keep the one?
I know, Doug, can you refresh my memory? Because I know we talked about an entrance on 101st But there was the issue of, obviously, I don't think they own that parcel, that like little triangle parcel. And I think there were issues too with septic fields, if I'm
Well,
not
there's
mistaken.
existing buildings, there's a septic field, there's a retention pond. So getting a public road all the way out to 101st, in my opinion, is unlikely. There's a desire, there was discussion about it, and we were leaving provisions for that. But this kind of changes everything. We don't need that. They don't need it. You guys own one of those buildings on 101st?
Yeah.
Which is the easterly of the two or the westerly of the two? The two-story, right there. So they own just the one building, no, the one to the east of that.
This one?
Yeah, that one with this.
But again, those are existing buildings. There's not even enough room for a public road between the buildings. It's all private. So to me, extending the road, there's just not, it's way too much cost to put in a public road, and then there's nothing to be gained to speak of. And again, that's one reason why this opportunity came along, where, you know, it's simple. It's a large single-user building, and then a more conventional building, not that different than what we're doing across the street in St. John Commons.
Doug, do you know who owns the parcel just west of the subdivision in Dyer where those homes are?
Just
I guess-
west or east?
I'm sorry, just east, north of that little green tree area. You know, I just don't want property just being landlocked. You know, there's no other access point, it
Which-
sounds like. So south of 101st, behind the two buildings, just west of the septic field, and that south, I mean,
Area.
Right
is
there.
that property gonna be landlocked? Or there's, I don't know what other access point they would, oh no, is there a road? Is that, okay.
No,
that's-
that-
Yeah, it almost looks landlocked, because you got a detention pond up on 101st, you got septic fields south of the building that he owns,
So this potentially will be
I think-
landlocked, and then this will be
be
potentially. I just
landlocked.
don't know how you get, and that's
Joe,
all.
I can't remember how that worked.
If I'm, Joe Napoli, if I'm following you, there is a road in between the two buildings, so that's how there would be access to it.
It's not a public road, it's just a private drive between those two buildings. But
Correct.
when you own the easterly of those two buildings, how much land do you own with that?
With the Hanover Two
Yeah.
building, to the edge of the septic fields, so
And
those
then,
mounds.
and the owner of the building to the west owns the rest.
Back.
Yeah, they own the whole.
So he owns
triangle.
all the property south of the septic field and potentially west to
And
the
even
subdivision.
retention pond.
And
to the tree
retention
line.
pond, yeah. So
And
he
is
owns
he-
around us.
And is he part owner of the private drive between the two buildings?
Yeah, we have a easement agreement on that.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure we're not landlocking any future landowner of any opportunity to access.
No, he has his frontage already.
Okay. Yeah, because I just don't want that, you know.
No,
they
that's a
can't
good-
get- They can't get back.
that's a
And
good
then,
question.
I mean, I don't even know who owns that. Oh, it's
Yeah,
all
that
owned the
probably
same owner.
is Christian.
And he owns that other building. That building,
Okay.
that building.
Thank you.
So lot 1 and lot 2, you will access the nursing home area or assisted living, and then for lot 2, how will you enter that, through lot 1 with a frontage road, or
Well,
what?
no, we want a separate entrance for
Oh,
that
okay.
building.
Off
And if
Calumet?
the town decides connecting them with a frontage road, it's just, connection between the parking lots makes sense, so you have the two access points, just in case, we can do that. It's certainly at that stage where we're willing to do that, too.
Who means, Doug, who would maintain the outlot? That's a very large swath of property.
Yes, it is.
Is
It's
that going to be,
their company for the short term, for the long term, really. So, and that'll decide if it's worth putting that cul-de-sac down there and finishing that off and trying to get a couple lots. We have a lot of water coming through there from the north side of Greystone too, so engineering-wise, we got some challenges, but we kind of sketched out the detention areas on the plan here, and we believe we can accommodate all that. It's just like, across the street for St. John Commons, it's a big green area and lots of easements, and not much could be done there.
is there continuing, I see a little drawing for the bike path? Is there easement for a bike?
We're not showing that. That's actually a
Oh, is that a pipe?
telecommunications easement. There's a couple fiber optic lines, pipeline, high tension line.
Isn't there a bike path here?
There's a bike path on this side.
Yeah. On this side.
Commons.
So, because St. John Commons has it on their outlet on the south.
St. John Commons, we did a bike path there.
Okay. John, are you aware of any improvements along Calumet that are being planned?
I am not.
Okay.
Doug, I did have a question though for you. Did you consider perhaps combining the detention for both lots 1 and 2? Or, yeah, 1 and 2.
They will probably be connected with a pipe.
Okay, equalized
Yeah,
or
well,
something.
they will be connected, whether
Yeah.
it's a swale or a pipe, we don't know yet.
Okay. Do they drain north or does this area generally drain
Yeah,
north?
so, it's kind of confusing. So, yeah, right now, it just kind of drains right through the middle of this property. And at the northeast corner of this project, there's a dual culvert underneath the entrance to the bank and then underneath Calumet Avenue.
Okay, that's what it.
All the water
looked
goes through a couple elliptical concrete culverts.
Okay.
And that's where it goes. So that's why we have to keep going in the same direction. And then it kind of goes through the other piece across the street and then back through St. John Commons. You can almost see it right there. You can see the waterway there, underneath Calumet Avenue by the bank, through the big 10-acre field right there,
Mm-hmm.
and then into our new pond in St. John Commons, and then off to the, there you go. Russ did that pond, and then it goes to the east.
Yeah, and you got some wetlands are in the easement area.
Yeah, and again, at the south end, we do have wetlands. And that corner, the very southwest corner of the 40 acres is wetlands as well.
Okay.
But unfortunately, a big circuitous route for that drainage when it really just wants to go east. But that's a different story.
I'm assuming zoning's all appropriate for the proposed,
This is the first time we've heard of the use, so we'll have to double check the zoning.
okay.
Do you know, Doug, have you looked at the schedule of uses and the zoning?
We have.
You have? Okay.
It's by
So
right.
we'll confirm that.
Okay. Any other questions for the good of the cause? Anything? All right.
So he's continuing to work with the people, and we'll see where it goes.
Yep.
If it does-
You heard some of the concerns, connectivity between lot 2 and 3, drainage and stuff like that, so.
That's kind of what we were
And then
expecting.
once you determine the waivers, we'll probably want to know
Of course.
what you'll be seeking. Okay.
We'll also present this with fire and safety, see what their concerns are as well.
Yeah,
Or
and
public- or police and
along
fire.
those lines, if you notice, we did provide connectivity all the way around the assisted living building. The plan that they sent me from a different location didn't do that. I said, I think they're gonna require it
Yeah.
for fire safety access. It makes a lot of sense. They could have easy access around that whole building. So we showed that, and they seem to be on board with that as well, so. Okay. Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have a proposed site plan of a drive-in restaurant at 9525 Wicker Avenue, St. John. And we have with us name and association for the record, please, gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is James Huss. I'm with DVG. I am here to inform the commission of our client, CLD Holdings LLC, their intent to redevelop a property at 9525 Wicker Avenue. Intended use is a proposed Chipotle restaurant. Information about the parcel. It is bordered by the American Legion to the north, J&M Golf Shop to the south. Parcel is directly across from the 95th Avenue intersection. If you could go to, can you bring up binder 1, Sergio? Yeah, that should be the,
Was that the real estate place? Was that Century
Correct.
21?
yes. Yes, that's the one. Thank you. The drive is intended to orientate itself across from 95th Avenue, which has the currently unused parcel to the west, in the event any intersection improvements do become required in the future. The parcel is just under 1 acre. It's Zone C2. It is within both the Town Center and US 41 overlay districts. Adjacent zoning to the north and the south is C2, C1 across the street to the west. To the site's rear or east is currently Zone C2, but is currently of a residential use. As you can see from our proposed plan, we are compliant for parking, although some of the spots are in the front of the site. The drive-through lane is capable of fully stacking 7 vehicles with 100% more in the parking areas, and I will touch on the unique nature of the site and as it relates to that in a little bit. We are proposing trash enclosure in the rear, furthest east, far away from any sight lines from US 41. We are currently developing a more fully developed landscaping plan. One thing to note is that the site's cleared from its prior use currently, but it does have almost complete visual obstruction from vegetation that is still in place there. That the intent is to leave that as it sits, which I think will benefit the current residential usage to the rear. Can you scroll, Sergio, can you scroll a few, I'll come back to the building elevations in a moment. We are proposing some modest signage, back up please. A single monument sign, 2 signs on the building. Stormwater management, we'll be proposing underground detention in the rear parking lot. And then Sergio, if you could scroll to the building elevations. And that we have some general renderings of the exterior of the building. I'm sure you've driven by some Chipotles. It's going to look very similar to many that you see. Exterior construction consists of brick, metal, and EIFS. The project will be presenting to the BZA in August for some required variances and a special exception. Many of the variances are endemic to the parcel's small footprint being only 1 acre. The special exception will be related to the drive-through, but I did want to touch on that a little bit because obviously with drive-throughs, you're worried about stacking. While you could classify it as a drive-through, Chipotle does things very differently than your standard McDonald's, your Taco Bells, or the like. The technical term is actually a Chipotle lane. You are unable to drive up, order food, and then wait for it and pay. Chipotle lanes are only there to service, whether it be somebody who ordered online, whether it be a DoorDasher just coming up to pick up someone else's food. That's their business model. You can't come there, get in the drive-through lane, order your food, and wait for it. What this does is it greatly reduces the stacking time, which obviously is a potential concern being off 41. To give you some general numbers, and there is a informational packet in your in the provided information, but there's almost always less than 4 vehicles stacked in the drive-through lane. More than half the customers are served in under 2.5 minutes, which is nearly 1/3 of the average across the board drive-through transaction time. Over 500 of these lanes have been installed since as of November 2002. And one of the reasons they have been so wildly successful, both for municipalities and users, is it greatly diminishes some of the perceived negative effects of drive-throughs. And just to touch on it again, we will be presenting to the BZA on the 21st, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions, comments? Do you own any other Chipotles?
I'm developing another same exact building in Chesterton right now. I am a preferred developer for Chipotle, where they ask me that they want to be in an area, so I have to go and find real estate for those areas. I'm a Crown Point resident, develop a lot of retail, quick service restaurants in Northwest Indiana, where I've recently done a few Popeyes deals and things like that. But
And if you could just state your
my
name.
name's Corey Dedamore.
Probably speak in the mic, too.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Corey Dedamore,
He's gonna
and
come out of the
I'm,
back room and yell at us.
yeah.
We don't want to get
Do
yelled
I have to
at.
give my address and all that, too?
Just say who you're from, your association.
Corey Dedamore, and I am the sole owner of CLD Holdings LLC and the developer, current owner of the property as well.
So is this a typical size building, or due to the size of the site?
No,
you had
this
to
is
reduce?
their, this is their 2350, sorry. I'm short and everything,
I
I thought you
get-
guys can hear me. I'm not gonna get taller. 2350 is the prototype standard size of a Chipotle, and this is the exact prototype that is replicated throughout the country. The only sites that might change is if they don't have a potential for a drive-through Chipotle lane, but all new developments will not even get approved to me to a preferred developer if they do not have the Chipotle lane any longer. You'll see that they're actually moving out of in-cap retail centers, things like that, that they don't have that, because we're all going technology-driven now with app-based ordering and things. So they actually designed the interior footprint for another service of just that window, where they're supplying the food out. And if you ever go into a Chipotle to eat, you'll look over to the left and it'll be right there where they're just supplying the food that goes right out to that, through that window. But yes, this is the 2350. I typically build, the Chipotle prototype does not usually have masonry brick on them, but I always kind of take a step above on all of my designs from when I'm building buildings. That, one, it's easier in every municipality we go to, and we're building a better looking product. So that masonry that is around that building is not typical. It's usually a 100% EFIS building, but I'm not even asking for any of that going forward. I'm going to put masonry on the building.
Do you know, Mr. Huss, how many waivers that you'll be seeking? I would imagine it's gotta be, there's, I mean, 2 acres is a minimum in this well, if you're in the town center overlay, you might be the first one I'm aware of on my tenure on the board that you're redeveloping in the town center.
It is a
Well,
bit,
the
it is
car
a,
condo. Car
it is
condo
a-
would have been in the town center.
it is a bit tricky with it both being in town center and 41, and depending on how you interpret it, some fall in, some fall out. 4,
My 2 colleagues each side of me sit on that board. They're gonna be entertaining, or entertained. He's still counting.
we are at 16 excluding landscaping. I would contend that, I mean, the landscaping is going to be tricky, but that's also one of those variances that I think is really just a cause of the acreage of the site. Would mention that, while I know we're talking town center versus US 41, but US 41 has a handful of mentions in their variance lists that have provisions for if the lot existed prior to the creation of the district, which is something to consider. And the landscaping ones will more than likely be numerous, but again, they're caused by there's just not a lot of working area on the property. And then it becomes a balancing act of whether we want to meet parking or provide more landscaping.
Okay. And then you're going before the BZA in August for those?
Correct.
Okay.
And just so you're aware, I have been in communication with J&M Golf and the owners to the north. I've donated a lot of things before I tore down the building to the Legion, and they're all very happy. They've seen proposed site plans. They've been very happy with what we're doing. And I even helped the Legion tear down a fence that they didn't like and things like that, so.
I appreciate that. All right, any other questions? Councilman? John, any other comments?
I like,
So,
I
which
like
lot is
Chipotle,
that?
how's that?
Sergio, is it the P, that one? Okay.
Yes.
I don't even know what some of this, I haven't looked at the zoning for town center, but it's gotta be a little bit more stringent than it is if it's just US 41 overlay district.
In ways it isn't. I mean, town center, it's very tailored to 2-story buildings. That's actually the first requirement of town center is that must be a 2-story building. Some of them are different, but we'd need a variance in either one.
I follow now.
All right.
Did he bring any samples?
You know, the veterans got taken care of, but not the plan commission.
That's what we said on the
Yeah, the BZA. no.
BZA for
Yeah,
the
you guys-
distillery.
You guys are
Yeah,
judicial.
that's
Said I
right.
liked it. I didn't go to that extreme, John.
All right.
Here, what?
Okay,
Exactly.
very good. Any other questions or comments for the good of the cause? We missing anything, Sergio?
We'll continue to work through the the variances and the town center determinations on that, so.
So in a timing issue, this would potentially go to BZA, work through all the variances, and then once those are determined, up or down, then it would come back to the plan commission for final review of the site plan.
Correct.
And then the site plan would, then we would have a public hearing based on those changes and stuff like that. Okay. Getting the hang of this. It only took me 10 years. Awesome. All right. Anything else before we let these gentlemen go? All right. Very good. All right.
Strange name.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, we have a concept plan for Calistoga?
Yeah, I don't know.
Did I pronounce that right?
Calistoga.
Calistoga.
Wow.
Kevin
So
Hunt
this
from
is a-
Schilling Development.
So this is a PUD located at southeast corner of Park Place and US Highway 231.
Thanks. There's two. Yeah, there's two for each.
Nice classy.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ooh,
Good. No. I didn't think so, but I was gonna double check. You do that.
Yeah.
Like I said, Kevin Hunt from Schilling Development. Unfortunately, Jack Slager is under the weather today, so he asked if I could step in for him. Likely, I can't answer all the questions he would, but we did want to get this concept plan out there. So you might have questions, comments. I'll take those back to ownership, to Jack Slager, and we'll take a look at them. But right now, we've got two developments. The first one is Calistoga. It's up, but we've got two projects we're very excited about. We worked with a land planner that we've worked with on our other developments. Right now, these are concept plans only. Most of the land is not inside St. John, so we'd need to annex. There'd be multiple approvals that would need to get approved before we could move forward. So, but we're in the final stages and final phases of some of our existing developments, so we wanted to get some new plans started. So right now is your first look, and our research that we've done so far. We've done a lot of research. We've got a lot of experience, and we're showing right now that our future developments are going to be a mix of housing products because they tend to be more successful and more appealing to a larger demographic. We're seeing a lot of grandparents that want to live next to their children, a lot of younger adults that want to live near their parents. I can attest to that. My parents retired and moved into a paired villa to stay near me. They wanted a nice area to live in, so but they didn't want a big area to take care of. So both of these developments that we're going to present today will show a mix of products. And of course, like all our other developments, we're going to bring quality built.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm getting some feedback from your conversation. I apologize. Okay, thank you.
So like all of our other developments, this is going to be, we're using quality builders. We're going to have high quality homes. We're going to have the same extensive HOA covenants. Likely what you're going to see here on both of these developments would be a master HOA and then separate sub HOAs for the paired villas and maintenance homes. And as always, all these products that come out go in front of the Architectural Review Committee through Schilling Development. They go through and review each plan individually and take a look and approve them so that they meet our high standards. We did go through the town's comprehensive plan. We looked at the annexation. We looked at the products that we were going to be offering, and we felt that both of these plans meet the comprehensive plan standards. Our best guess right now is that these developments would take about anywhere from 6 to 10 years, with a build-out closer to 15 years. So to start off with Calistoga, this is a 173-acre site. It fronts on US 231, and then it's going to wrap around off to Klein Avenue. You can see we buffered the residential area with a commercial frontage on 231. And then we've got landscaping and a frontage road behind that. We would tie in the entrance actually on Park Place and have for the residential development to come in there. So right now, what we're showing in our concept plan is we've got a section of maintenance-free, 60-foot wide lots. We've got 76 paired villas, and then we've got 225 units that are traditional single families. We do have some through streets that'll connect to Mill Creek and then to the farmland to the south. Total number here is 386 units on 173 acres for a density of 2.2 units per acre, which is comparable to most of the developments in the area. This, like I said, this is going to be PUD, so it'll come in through a PUD zoning, and we likely would seek an annexation agreement as we bring it into the town. And one thing to note that we've been in discussion with internally is that there was a change in state law. So one of the things that could be an option here would be a residential TIF program that would allow this property to be TIFed for future improvements that the town may want to use on Klein or 109th or elsewhere. So Calistoga is the first of the two we're presenting today, and I'm ready to take some comments that you may have. And like I said, I don't know if I can answer all the questions, but I will bring them back and at least give you the opportunity to ask those questions.
Questions, comments? Go ahead.
Yes, I do have a question here. I know that you have all these single family for senior citizens, pretty much that's what you said, right?
No, it'll be a mix, but there's
Be mixed?
we also have younger buyers that maybe aren't in the market for a large home or a large.
Okay, it kind of, it's interesting for me to have and I respect the developers very much. I've worked a lot with them. But for them to come up and say, a lot of people want smaller lots, when you say things like that, I want to see numbers. But that usually comes from you, the marketing department.
Okay, well,
That's why I think if you could kind of get those numbers, that would help, simply because if you got smaller lots, you're going to have more housing. Is that true?
if there's smaller lots, yes, but.
Okay, so there's a lot of demand from the community that comes from that. What kind of demand do you think that those little lots or those housing will have from the community? I think that's something that you have to look at, because that's what we need to look at. Although this is a nice plan for futuristic 10 years from now, which will probably end up having smaller lots then. But the demand for water, the demand for fire, police protection, which is our first and foremost responsibility, and that tends to put a weight on the taxpayers in St. John, simply because a development like this, there's some unintended consequences. And correct me if I'm wrong, okay, please. And this is a dialogue.
Yeah.
There's some unintended consequences that come from this. Development, you have to have trucks going through some other areas to start to build these. And those trucks end up doing some heavy-duty damage, so for the pre-existing or the existing roads that St. John has. So that's the questions I have, and perhaps you could start to look at it that way, in that perspective, and what can someone like you says, okay, we want smaller lots, people want smaller lots, but there's a demand for it. So there's some, the unintended consequences that we have to look at, and that's something that, if you don't mind.
Okay, you made a comment about wanting numbers. What kind of numbers would you want?
Well, the demand that you said more people, younger people want smaller lots, and who are these younger people? Are they from the state of Indiana, or are they coming from another state that end up saying, well, you know, we don't pay any more taxes than we do in Illinois, so it'd be a lot cheaper, we buy smaller lots. So I want to see those numbers. I want to see something that I could actually say, you know, they're looking at it the right way for the best interests of the town.
Okay, we'll take a look at, I'll see what we can get. I understand, and I think the other comment you're making is kind of, your main concern here is the demand. You said water, fire, police, construction, traffic.
All those things that, it adds up to the town expense.
We understand that, and I think that's one of the reasons why for this project, I made mention of a potential residential TIF that would allow, and you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but essentially, rules were updated with the state this year to allow for 20-year residential TIFs. Those funds that came out of this could be used by the town at a later date for infrastructure improvements. Not too much different from park impact fees, road impact fees. So you'll have those funds from the development to use at a later date for infrastructure. So, but that's only just one of the options, and we'll look into that.
I appreciate that, sir.
I have a statement, and I have concern too. Schilling's proposing a PUD, and so I look at this plan, and what does St. John get from it? We get 386 lots on 173 acres. What are we getting as the town for 386 lots? 60-foot wide lots and 80-foot wide lots. I am not a fan at all for narrow lots like this. Joe touched on it. The demand for water, demand for sewer, more traffic. More potentially for the schools, if that's Hanover or St. John or wherever these kids are going. I've said it many times that residents want to move to St. John because they see the open space. Yeah, they'll buy the 60-foot lots because they want to live here, and then that's the only choice they have. But if they had 90-foot lots, 100-foot wide lots, they'll buy those too. And just, to me, it's shocking to see lots this narrow. 85 of them. 85 60-foot wide lots and 225 of 80-foot wide lots. Just. And what else is here? I don't see any bike paths, I don't see any parks, I just see lots everywhere I look. Not for me. That's all I got.
Understood.
Kevin,
And the lot sizes, and this was based off following comprehensive plan and kind of our demand, what we see.
What's the lot sizes to the west? Anybody know? Sergio, do you know?
Mill
Just
Creek.
pick a few.
Mill Creek should have they should have some paired villas, they should have some single family.
80 foot?
Yeah, it looks like 80s.
I don't know, we're getting a lot of paired villas in town, we're getting a lot of these single-family, you know, small lot lists, the gates, it just seems like everywhere you turn to the west, to the north, there's a lot of that. And
Okay.
does,
And I'll
does
bring that
St.
back.
John need that?
Yeah.
St. John's always been, you know, in the past with large lots. And then it just seems by time, over time, it just gets smaller, 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 smaller. I mean, what's next?
I'm in agreement with Bob and Joe about the infrastructure and that stuff like that. And like he said, I mean, you have 386 total residents gonna live back here, and there's not one park on this. Nothing. I don't know. I think that you need to work on that. That would be definitely on my list.
You said annexation. Has the process started for annexation?
Has not.
Is all the property that is shown on this diagram required to be annexed, or are some already included?
There's a roughly 6 of the 12 commercial acres along 109th are in the town of St. John.
Already zoned commercial?
Yeah, I believe that it is zoned commercial. The rest would need to be annexed in.
So Sergio, when it gets annexed, they come in at R1, correct? Because you said you want to work with St. John Annex Agreement. Are you talking about getting annexed and then
It would be annexed subject to a
zoned at
PUD.
this? Yeah, so you'd want to do it all at once.
Well, it would be annexed, and it would be, well, one of the ideas would be we would annex, subject to the PUD we approve. If it doesn't, if the approval doesn't happen for whatever reason, we wouldn't annex.
Then you want to annex.
Kevin, do you know if Schilling is looking at any of the other property outside this area, specifically to the south, to tie into? Have they had any contact, or do you know if there are wishes?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Obviously, I think we're always open to additional future development near our land, but I'm not aware of anything.
And I don't know if your company would be willing, I think, to give us perspective, and I think it's always a good idea to show this layout as R1, to see what those numbers are in comparison to the 386. What an R1, which would be the regular ordinance or annexation, just so we could have a perspective on what that differential is. Right now, I mean, I don't know what you can put on here at R1 and maybe R2, just so we have an understanding of the difference of the density, I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And then, of course, well, I mean, I don't know what amenities that you guys have proposed. I know this is initial suggestion, so.
Right now, this is the concept plan. This is to get plan commission feedback, so I appreciate the comments. I'd rather get them now than
No,
as we get later along, so.
The other, you know, as this town grows, we got to make sure we're providing opportunities for increased annexation. So I see the wetlands you have along Klein Avenue. We just need to make sure that future utility easements run along Klein Avenue for future developments to the south. We want to make sure there's access points.
I'm sorry, say
If
that
you
again?
have, we need to make sure that utility has access along Klein Avenue, because if not, if it's wetlands and there's no utilities, we just got to determine how that goes farther to the south and north. So as we lay this out, just for that to be considered.
Can I add something, John?
No.
Just to look.
I said no. No, but I just want to, before, I'm serious, I want to jump in. But, I mean, about a park in this, I totally understand what you're saying, but the previous park director told me he had 27 parks and 2 people to run it. And usually, and I'm not saying you guys, usually it's the worst part of the property, it's the low point of the development. So I totally understand what you're saying, and that's but I mean, I just want to make sure that, you know, I would hate to dump another park on Michael O'Shea and he'd be like, how are we gonna maintain it, how are we gonna do this and all this. But, great point. All right, now, go ahead, John.
Okay, just for reference, there is a regulatory drain that goes through this property called Schreiber Ditch under the county's control, so you might want to verify that status, because you might have to vacate it to pursue this.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'd have to leave a corridor around it, and
Okay.
the,
I'll bring that up to Jack.
yeah, just check into that, yeah.
Certainly, he handles the engineering
Yeah,
stuff, so.
yeah. Sometimes maps are wrong, so is it there or is it not there, so, yeah.
And mixed use would always be great. Commercial, mixed use, 2-story, commercial, residential on top.
So we do have the, we've
I'm
got,
just, no, it's a concept line, right?
right, we've got the commercial up front. I don't anticipate that being developed immediately. There's not a need, but so we'd leave that open for future development, whatever comes in.
Okay. Any other homework we're assigning, Kevin? You have access to the south, or to the west, 2 spots. You have it to the south, 1 spot. 1 access on Klein. 2 right-ins, right-out on commercial. 386. So what is a typical R1 density? We used to know that number. I used to know that number. Is it like wasn't there like a 2, I can't remember what it was. We'd always able to figure out the 2.3.
1.3 or 1.4 lots per acre comes to my mind.
So you're saying this is less dense if it's an R1 because of all the amenities or wetlands, potentially? Yeah, okay,
2.2.
Yep.
okay, very good. Any other questions before we go to Stone Creek? All right. You're up again.
Okay, Kevin Hunt, on behalf of Schilling Development, again, stepping in for Jack Slager. We've
You
got.
did that on purpose, by the way.
Yes, I see that. So we've got Stone Creek, which is another development we'd be bringing in. This land is not annexed into the town of St. John.
It is not?
It is not. Well, I don't believe any of it is. And so again, this would come in through an annexation agreement. This is the property that is between the railroad and Parish Avenue. It's again, a 173-acre site. The property would go all the way up north to where the power line easements are, and then there's a pipeline easement to the north side of that as well. This is, again, the 3 different products: maintenance-free, single-family, paired villas, and traditional single families. We'd have 381 units on 173 acres for, again, another density, same as the other development, 2.2 units an acre, which we believe is pretty comparable to most of the single-family developments. We would be seeking PUD zoning on this project. And again, like I mentioned before, we would be open to bringing this in through a residential TIF for future infrastructure improvements. The town would be allowed to use those funds. So right now, we've got heavy landscaping along berm and landscaping against Parish Avenue, and detention and preserved woodland on the west side. Willing to take comments, questions that anyone has on this project.
Same thing, lot width, that's all I'll say.
Same here.
Yeah, and maybe the second thing is on the very north end, the access to, maybe that might be potential, is that gonna be commercial to the north?
Maybe 3 Springs.
3 Springs?
Yes.
It's already zoned south of Lakeview on the
Yeah.
left.
So we've got a connection to 3 Springs in the somewhat northwest corner.
They're looking like they're already dying.
Are you tying into 3 Springs?
No, they can.
No.
The second phase, the Three Springs would have to go in for them to make the
Okay.
connection.
Okay.
So there is a road there. We propose a road there. I guess, not sure where Three Springs has their connection, but we would connect.
We showed it both ways, south and east, it just depends what you guys want. We can do that.
So, Kevin, really quick, up near the cul-de-sac where you have the utility easement, it's all green just because,
Unfortunately, we cannot do much with the land, given that the power lines run east to west. And you can see another utility easement with some hash marks. That's the pipeline. So we can't put any homes on the pipeline.
but you got that cul-de-sac with 1, 2, 3, 4 lots up there.
The setbacks would have to allow it to, I think there's a 50-foot
You can be clear of the, okay.
50-foot break from the pipeline, if I understand correctly. So we've got enough space there for probably 2 homes.
So a couple other points, again, for perspective, number-wise, love to see what a number is at R1 layout. Or, I mean, I guess the question is, would Schilling consider coming in, instead of a PUD, asking for R2 or R3, instead of doing a variance of a PUD as an option? And then that just, I mean, I know this is all concept, but how, again, Parish Avenue, we need to make sure we have access to utilities along Parish. This might be, 381 lots, a traffic analysis on the impact of Parish and what type of improvements would be there. And then, of course, utilities along there to make sure it's just not outlots, and then we have to make sure we have easements along that corridor.
Okay. So the one reason that we've got, we come in as a PUD is the mixed product type. So though, much like Greystone, we've got different product type out there. We've seen success out there. It allows different product types, allows us to diversify. Really, the only way to get that is through a PUD. So, and that's why it's coming in. We're seeking a PUD. But I'll bring that back to Jack, take a look at R1 layout, what it would look like R2.
Just so we have a perspective on numbers. And I mean, you have multiple different, I know you have different, but again, it could come in at different zoning. You just break up the phases into, units. I mean, I don't know how much a PUD is a pain in the butt when it's going through all the ordinances and stuff like that, so trying to make things a little bit more simpler. Oh, and I was just talking about that house on Parish, the one that's sort of cut out. I know, just as we proceed forward, we need some connectivity, I'm not wanting that landowner to ever move or be forced out, but it wouldn't be logical to have that house flip if it ever became under control. So instead of having it,
Sure.
but I understand you have no authority,
Yeah.
but we got to plan for the future. So.
Yeah, if that were available, I think we'd take a look at that, certainly.
And Bob,
And then that house will likely not, if we annex in, that house still stays outside of St. John. So the connectivity to that house would be limited.
are they septic?
I'm not sure what.
Yeah, they-
And Bob, you would be a park, you would want to see some sort of amenity. I know this is conceptual, okay.
Something in infrastructure, I'm really concerned about the infrastructure. I mean, we're adding 381 more homes and
So like,
more sprinklers and more water usage, and
Yeah, it's a huge demand.
It is a huge
on
demand.
everything. I don't know if this is a concern, but you have your north-south corridor on the eastern part of the subdivision here, and then it jogs over to the west, and then it continues up. I don't know if that makes sense or not to have it jog over. Yeah, right, yeah, you got the north-south corridor, then it jogs over, and then it continues north.
Correct. That, the straight lines of a north-south road are probably, we try and avoid that.
You trying to break it up, or what's
Yeah,
the?
a little movement to the road, we believe is a little bit more appealing to homeowners.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
we're, obviously, if there's concerns about that, we can take a look at that.
I don't know how anyone else on the board feels, but I don't know I just don't know if it makes sense to jog it.
Correct. And the two entrances, just so a little background on that, those were already cut in when Parish was redone, so that's why we have those entrances where they're located.
It's the same thing with me. It's the same question, same concerns that I have. This adds more stress to the schools. Not that I'm not on the school board or anything like that. It adds stress to the school, the traffic, and all the. Not mind you. Okay, this is a conceptual approach, but that's what I have to try to think about.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? You good?
I believe I'm good. No, if there's no other comments, I'll,
Be more as we digest.
there's
There's plenty.
we've
Jack's
got to
gonna
come
be
back.
under- Jack's
We'll be
gonna
back.
he's
Jack will
probably
be back.
Watch it now. He'll be sick of it a couple more times.
He probably just threw up, but
So he'll be prepared for next time we're up.
So is this gonna be something similar to what you have, or a product you already currently have in the community? So if we assume paired villas, it's gonna be something like Greystone, other units like Greystone, are we looking at the same type
It'll
of?
be, the mixed use will be similar to Greystone. We're gonna probably bring in more, and a different group of builders, on some of the product.
Okay.
Wider group.
All right. Any other comments? All right, we'll move on.
Kevin Hunt on behalf of Schilling Development.
Oh, I'm sorry. So next on the agenda, we got Continental Unit 3, proposed final plat of Unit 3 to the original 55 acres of Continental. You're up now.
This is the proposed final plat for Continental Unit 3. The underground utilities have been completed. Road installation starts tomorrow. Jack's got to note that the roads are private, so there's no inspection on those. There were some comments from engineering. I believe that got cleaned up today. I think we added a flood zone statement. And then we cleaned up on our end some fence easement, and conservation easement language. So we'd be coming in at the next meeting for final plat.
Number of lots are the same on primary and final.
Correct. This was the one where we tweaked, so
Oh,
the lots were.
Did we get the water situation fixed?
We
That
did.
was where it's stubbed.
did.
We got it stubbed. Thank you. Okay. This is where we had a dead end, and then okay, good. And then just make sure he has a letter stating everything's good. John has a letter for the plan commission that everything's good for final. Made a mistake one time. So, all right. Any questions, comments? You're good with the water, Bob, with the water?
yeah, pressure test passed, samples passed, it's all good.
Okay. Let Kevin go. All right, we're good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda, we have Streamside proposed utility easement between lots 2 and 3 to provide sewer service to 13201 West 109th.
So I'll go ahead and kind of brief the commissioners on the status of this, and this is just to create an awareness, so you all know when Streamside comes in, there'll be an addition to what was originally a permanently plat approval. So yesterday, we received a building permit for a sewer lateral tie-in into Streamside from a existing farmstead home, and so they're proposing to tie into the Streamside sewer system through an utility easement. There's a scope of work from the contractor. Here is an excerpt of the proposed Streamside development or subdivision. And so what they're proposing is let me zoom in on this, is at final plat to submit, to include an easement, a utility easement between lots 2 and 3, a 12-foot utility easement to connect the lateral line, the sewer lateral line, to an existing home behind the church there and just north of Summerlin and south of the church there off 109th, and connect the sewer lateral line to the sewer main line that it would be installed during the Streamside development itself. I spoke to the developer. They will be coming in a couple months for final plat approval, and that will be shown there. And I spoke to the applicant for the lateral sewer line, and they are willing to wait until this gets final plat approval and recorded to move the permit forward for the sewer lateral line.
Sergio, that'll be private then? The sewer tap?
Yes, it'll be a sewer lateral, yep.
Okay.
So they will tap in through here.
I'm assuming they're gonna have a lift station, or is it going to be gravity? Do you know?
I don't know. We have the scope here, and I'm assuming that as this moves forward, we'll probably, and I did ask that they submit the specs on that. You know what we could do, Bob, is we'll get you this. Looks like it got
It's
cut off.
gravity, but.
It is gravity?
Gravity,
Okay.
yeah.
So not ideal to put an easement between two homes, but the easement's large enough, wide enough?
Yeah, it's a 12-foot easement, 6 feet on either side of lots 2 and 3.
And what's the size of the pipe? It's just for that one resident, right?
Mm-hmm.
6 inch. Yeah, I guess depends on how deep it is. but-
Yeah.
Because the only other access point is off of 109, which would be a
Correct.
long run. And he's unsanitary, I would imagine. Is he inside the city?
He is.
He is, the gentleman here?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
This guy right here. But I
you
wanted
think?
the commission to be aware
with
of
that?
the changes from preliminary plat to final.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, concerns? All right. Sergio, you're up again. Amendments to subdivision control
Correct.
ordinance.
This is the same subdivision control proposed amendments that were presented a month ago. No changes. If there are no additional requests, then I would ask that we move this to a public hearing in September.
Okay. Everyone's going to be pop quiz at the next meeting. Make sure you read all this stuff.
We've gone through
Do
it
it
at
now.
least 4 times collectively
A pop quiz is supposed to be a surprise.
through the highlighted sections. We will.
Can we do it again tonight?
You want to do it again tonight?
Do the pop quiz now.
No.
All right, we'll start from the beginning.
No, okay. So everyone, please, I mean, those,
Yeah.
let's look through it, make sure we're ready for the public hearing and.
We will start working on the public hearing notice for September, the first week in September, the first Wednesday in September. But we wanted to let you all know that it's coming to that point where we need to then get this out.
So we make a recommendation, town council approves?
Correct,
Very
yes.
good, all right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Public hearing notice.
Public hearing notice. So what we are proposing is that the public hearing notice is practice that the town's been working on, change a little bit in that rather than using the 4x4 plywood signs that are created at Public Works and maintained at Public Works and distributed through Public Works, that we change the practice and emulate what other adjacent communities have been doing for many years, which is reduce the size of these signs to yard size signs, and where the applicant would then be distributed these signs with the appropriate markings and information as needed on the side and below, so that way the public is notified appropriately. We've been working with, or communicating with Public Works. They seem to support this effort of these endeavors as well. And we presented this this format to the BZA, and they took action on moving forward as well with these types of yard signs. The idea is that they're easier to manage and transport and maintain. And as larger properties become are needed of this, public hearings, notices, multiple signs can be posted. If they're corner lots, we can reach both corners or both sides or facing the right of way. So that's kind of the direction that we're wanting to go, and we're hoping that the Plan Commission sees value in this and supports as well.
Awesome. Any other questions? BZA was good? You guys good? Awesome.
Yep,
Awesome.
green line.
We'll go ahead and present this. I think the BZA took action, and I believe the Plan Commission will take action as well.
Yes, according to the rules and regulations of the Plan Commission, any petitioner seeking a zone change or anything that would require public notice must provide notice, and the rules provide that the application and the notice would be in the form approved by the commission. So I think public action and a vote approving the proposed notice would be appropriate.
We'll bring this at the August 2nd meeting.
So another public hearing on the change? Nope. No public hearing.
No public hearings
Just we
required,
can just make a change.
approval by the Plan
Okay,
Commission.
very good. Awesome. Hearing anything else for the good of the cause? We are adjourned.